Okay, so today I'm going to show you a little bit about the work that I've done of extending Pinry. And if you see here, this is a typical Pinry page. And you've got a bunch of pictures, all pinned by me because it's my page. But I'm going to show you something new, which is right here in the bottom corner. And that is pinning videos. As it stands today, Pinry does not have the ability to pin videos. And I've added that functionality. I'm still missing one element to it, and we'll see that when we get a little bit further. So what I'd like to show you is adding a YouTube, and I just have a random YouTube about Boolean algebra, and we're going to pin this YouTube by clicking New Pin. We put it right into the image URL, which should ultimately change in order to reflect the fact that it's for videos as well. And there you go. We have right there in the preview pane the video, and of course we can even watch the video. As I can put in my description, I can put in some tags, and I can post the pin, and there it shows up in my Pinry. So that's the good news. Now, how did all that happen? I'm going to show you some of the basic steps. I'm obviously not going to elaborate on each one of the pieces that I built, but just to show you where those pieces had to go so that you can kind of figure out how to extend Pinry on your own as well. In order to make those changes, I needed to make changes in 4 files, and I'll show you what I did, again without the details, but just to show you what the thinking of how Pinry works. Obviously, images are going to have different associated data with it than videos will. Instead, we're going to make a change to the models.py and specifically to class pin. And what I'm going to do, because I want to add the ability to use Vimeo or YouTube, I'm going to add a Vimeo car field and a YouTube car field with the appropriate lengths based on what I know about Vimeo and YouTube. And specifically, I'm just going to keep track of their IDs. So that's pretty straightforward. So let me show you where everything is found. Firstly, let's just do a listing of our Pinry. This is the parent directory, and we're going to go cd into Pinry, and here we have the core. Core is where almost all of our changes are going to be made. So let's cd into core. And then we can ls the core, but most important, we're going to see here are the forms.py, which we're not going to make any changes to, and models.py, which are the changes that I just showed you before. You have to know that you must use south to make that type of change. Obviously this is not about using south. There's plenty of good documentation on how to use south. But we changed the model. Now we're able to go ahead and start to change the form and the HTML. And here's where it's found. If we go back up one level, and we're going to see here we have core, static, users, setting, and templates. And for right now, we're going to head over into static because we're going to have to make a change to the JavaScript, and I'll show that to you in a second. Here we have again 4 different directories. We'll cd into JS, check it out, and there's 2 areas that we need to make changes to. One of them is helpers.js and the other one is pinform.js. Technically we could do all this in pinform, but using the same format that they have, we're going to add some of our new pieces into helpers, and some of them we're going to keep in pinform. Let's open up pinform, and here we have pinform for Pinry, and you'll see there's a bunch of different functions here. And what I want to do right now is to make some changes into the create pin preview from form. Basically, the way that they make their previews is actually by taking the data from the form and rendering the HTML using JavaScript handlebars and creating the context with the data from the form. So basically what I've done here is I've added a Vimeo context, and it would be Vimeo link parser, which I'll show you in a minute, and it would be a value if there is that value, which I'll show you what that means soon. Same thing with YouTube. Those are both added. The original started right here by the image, and then you have description and tags. The next thing that they do is they create a variable called HTML, which is rendering a template called pins.template with context as an argument. And that's all done with handlebars. Now here's where I needed to add specific for my Vimeo or for my YouTube. And I used a regex in order to see whether the URL was actually a image or a Vimeo or a YouTube. And then I did a series of else-if statements, even though really it could have been done with a switch. And I created over here data.youtube, which is going to be the data that's ultimately sent to our database. And I used a new helper function, which I'll show you soon, called YouTube link parser. Or if it was Vimeo, then I had to do something called Vimeo link parser. And by doing that, I was able to send new types of data. But this is where their form is really happening here. The end of this is that it's an AJAX form, and it sends back the information, and we have a success possibility and an error possibility, and I basically got it to work, which is a lot of fun. Now if you'll notice that the image, data.image, is from this API /vi/image, and that's done with Tasty Pie helpers, which is in an area called api.py. And here also, because I was making some changes to the possible data I was going to be getting back and forth, I needed to add on the pin resource, I needed to add in the def hydrate images Vimeo and YouTube. Now all of that's great for the backend, but the user would never get to see any of that if I don't actually make a change to the HTML that's being rendered. And for that, I'm going to go into Pinry, templates, and not the core, the basic HTML, but instead into the includes. That's where we have all of the HTML that is used by handlebars. And I specifically went into pins, because that's actually where it's being shown. And I added and if Vimeo, and if YouTube, if they exist, and if none of the above, then we have an else, which would just be the image. Now I know all that's pretty complicated, but what I'm trying to show you is that it's really pretty easy to make major changes to Pinry. You just kind of have to start to get the layout of how it's all set up. And I guess the two major areas that you should pay attention to are the core, as well as once you're in the templates area, to know that a lot of the HTML that you're going to need to work with is going to be found in the include directory. Good luck.